Today, we'll be building a SwiftUI to-do list app with Firebase login and Firestore. This is the actual app we'll be creating. The user is able to log in using their credentials, test@test.com. The password is test1234. Click on sign in. So as you can see, there are a few to-dos that the user needs to complete. We can add a new to-do. Click on the plus sign, add the to-do subject, collect relative from airport, assign a date, say 27th of August, click on save. As you can see, the to-do has been saved. And I'll also show you the to-do within the Firestore database. And as you can see, if we navigate to Firebase, we can see all the to-dos for the logged in user. So if I click on this document here, for this user, you can see the to-dos. And this is the new to-do that we just submitted a few minutes ago, collect relative from the airport. We can also delete the to-dos from the Firestore database by swiping. So if we wanted to delete one of the to-dos, we just swipe and click on delete, and then that record will also be removed from Firestore. And we can update the to-do as well. If you want to set one of the to-dos to complete, it's code is playing up. So go into delete mode. Let me just stop the simulator, try it again. I'll select the record again, the one that we want to update. Okay, so at the moment, the status for the wash the car to do is pending. If I want to, I can update it to done, and click on save. As you can see, it's now been updated to done, so that to-do is done. We can also search or filter the to-dos. If I type in W, it will filter on all the to-dos that contains the letter W, such as wash the car and mow the lawn. So I don't know what happened there, so let's go. So this is the app that we'll be creating today. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Is to navigate to Firebase console as seen in the browser, which is console.firebase.google.com. And then we need to create a brand new project within Firebase. So just click on create a Firebase project. And then we need to name our project. I will just name it as Firebase Login Tutorial. Click on continue. Continue. Continue again. And then we need to choose or create a Google Analytics account. I'll just create a new account. I will give the account the same name as the tutorial. I'll just call it Firebase Login. Click on Save. Select your location. Accept the terms. Click on Create. Then we have to wait a few seconds. Click on Continue. The next thing we need to do is to add Firebase to our app. Since we're focusing on iOS, SwiftUI, we need to select the iOS. Click on iOS button. And then within the Xcode project that we created a few minutes ago, we need to locate our Apple Bundle ID. To access your bundle ID, click on your project file, which is the blue one at the top. Click on General, and then the bundle identifier is, I think it's here somewhere. That's in sign-in and capabilities. So just select the entire string. And then we go back to Firebase console. And then we paste our Apple Bundle ID into the text field. I think that one's being used, so I better change it. The Apple Bundle ID was already being used, so I need to change it. So let's change it to something unique, which is Firebase Login Tutorial. I'll copy it again. And then within the Apple Bundle ID field, I just replace the previous one that was there. App nickname, that's optional, so we can ignore that. Apple Store or App Store ID, we can ignore that also. Click on Register App. That will register it within Google Firebase. And then we need to download the Google Service Info plist. Click on the Next button. Click on Next. Click on Next again, as we'll be implementing the code later. Click on Continue to Console. The next thing we need to do to enable authentication within Firebase, we need to click on build on the left hand side, which is here. And then we need to select authentication. And then we need to click on get started within the authentication. And then we click on email and password. We have to make sure we enable email password. Click on the switch. And then click on save button. As you can see, it has created our authentication table that will be filled with users later, with usernames and passwords. The next thing we need to do is to drag the file that we downloaded a few minutes ago, which was the Google Service Info plist that should be saved within your downloads folder or maybe your desktop. So we need to locate that file now and then drag it into Xcode. It's within my downloads folder, so just drag it into your project. And then click on finish. Now we need to download the Firebase framework using Swift Package Manager. So we need to select File, click on Add Package Dependencies. Since I downloaded it earlier, as in a few days ago, it's already within my list. But if it's not in your list, just type in the following, which is this one here. http github.com Firebase -iOS-SDK. And then we need to specify a version number, which is the exact version that I'm using is 10.29. The reason being, because at the moment I'm just using Xcode 15, and when I tried to use the later version, it came up with an error. Click on Add Package. And then it should start to download the package from Firebase. So the main package we'll be using at the moment is Firebase Auth, which is this one here. But just click on Add Package to add all of them anyway. And then it starts to download the packages with the dependencies from Firebase. The next thing we need to do is to make sure that our Swift Package Manager Firebase files have been downloaded. We need to open our app file and then type in the following: import Firebase core, just to make sure that the frameworks are available. So they should be, as we can see them in the list here. And then we need to compile our project. Just to make sure everything can be seen. In the next tutorial, we will implement our Firebase documents that will include the to-do list to enable a user to have many to-dos so that it forms a relational database structure so that a user can have 0 or more to-dos stored in Firebase. We'll also implement our data model as well. So that's in the next tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Today, we will be building a SwiftUI to-do list app with Firebase login and Firestore. This is the actual app we'll be creating. The user is able to log in using their credentials, test@test.com. The password is test1234. Click on sign in. So as you can see, there are a few to-dos that the user needs to complete. We can add a new to-do. Click on the plus sign, add the to-do subject, collect relative from airport, assign a date, say 27th of August, click on save. As you can see, the to-do has been saved. And I'll also show you the to-do within the Firestore database. And as you can see, if we navigate to Firebase, we can see all the to-dos for the logged in user. So if I click on this document here, for this user, you can see the to-dos. And this is the new to-do that we just submitted a few minutes ago, collect relative from the airport. We can also delete the to-dos from the Firestore database by swiping. So if we wanted to delete one of the to-dos, we just swipe and click on delete, and then that record will also be removed from Firestore. And we can update the to-do as well. If you want to set one of the to-dos to complete, let's code this pane up. So go into delete mode. Let me just stop the simulator. Try it again. I'll select the record again, the one that we want to update. Okay, so at the moment, the status for the wash the car to do is pending. If I want to, I can update it to done. And click on save. As you can see, it's now been updated to done, so that to-do is done. We can also search or filter the to-dos. If I type in W, it will filter on all the to-dos that contains the letter W, such as wash the car and mow the lawn. So I don't know what happened there, so let's go. So this is the app that we'll be creating today. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. In this tutorial, we will implement our Firestore cloud setup that will include our to-dos, documents, and our users, and we'll also implement our data model. So to implement the Firestore cloud setup, the first thing we need to do is to click on Cloud Storage, and then click on Create Database. Just select the standard edition, then click on Next. I'll select Europe because I'm in England. Click on Next. I'll just select Test Mode. Click on Create. At the moment, it's just creating the process. The next thing we need to do is to add our documents to the Firestore. The documents, they're similar to like data tables. So the first document we have to create is to-dos. So just click on the Start Collection plus button. Name the collection to-dos. Click on Next. For the document ID, you can just name it to-dos. For our fields, we need a due, at, and that will include the actual date and time when the to-dos should be done or when it was completed. We need another field called owner UID, which is string, and this can be used for testing purposes. The next field we need is status. In status, it shows if the to-do has been completed or not. That's a string data type. The next field we need is subject. The subject is, for example, washing the car, and that's a string data type. Just click on Save, and as you can see, our document has been created. It just needs to be populated with the data. So I'll close that now. The next thing we need to do is to create our data model. So we create a new Swift file. Name the file data model. Click on Create. We also need to import Foundation, and Firebase Firestore for Swift. we need to create an enum, and the purpose of the enum will show the states of the to-dos, the string, codable, case, iterable, so that we can loop through the enums using a loop, for loop. Each enum will be identifiable, we have a unique ID. So the states of the to-dos includes pending, done, and cancelled. We also need our ID, string, which will be the raw value. I spelled codable incorrectly. And that should be codable. We also need to create a to-do struct, which is also codable and identifiable and equatable, so that we can do comparisons. We need equatable. At document ID, var ID string. And the purpose of the at document ID is so that Firebase can automatically map the document ID to that property. Var subject, as we saw earlier, is the subject in the Firestore. Var due at is date, data type. And we also need current status that we created about 2 minutes ago, which is the to-do status in the enum. Var owner ID, which is string, and that can be useful when doing debugging or testing. We also need to add our init, our initializer. So the ID, that should be optional, equal to nil. Subject, string, due at, string. The subject is string, due at is date, status is to-do status, and owner ID is string. Document ID, on lines 20, document ID should be optional. Now I'll just compile it. just compiling at the moment. Compile. The next file we need to create is our Auth service. The purpose of our Auth service is to enable the user to sign up, sign in, and sign out of the application. So let's create another Swift file. Name the file Auth service. Click on create. We need to import Firebase Auth to enable the user to be authenticated, and also SwiftUI and observation. We also need to use main actor, since this will be executed on the main thread, and also observable. It should be observable so that the UI can detect when values change within the class, and then they will be published. Final class, and we're not using any inheritance. You don't have to use the word final, it's up to you. Auth service. And we create a private read-only property. Var user, which is user. It's optional. And that will keep track of the user that is currently signed in. We also need our initializer. It's incorrect. So the initializer should be auth.auth add state did change listener. Root cell. Underscore users in. It's using the wrong bracket. After add state did change listener, we need these curved brackets, that one there. I think that's right now. And then we self user to initialize the user object. I cannot find weak. Scope. Let me clean it. Find it again. I'll just pause the video since it's compiling. It takes a bit of time. It's still compiling, but by looking at it, it's this other bracket. It shouldn't be there. The next thing we need to do is to assign or create a few more variables, which is signed in, bool, user.nil. So these are computed property, not variables. So that's our computed property. And then we need to create another computed property for the user ID, string, user, question mark, UID. And that's a shortcut to the current user's ID. The next thing we need to do is to create our sign-in method. But the first method we create is our our sign up. Sign up method accepts an email, password, which is string, async throws, let results equals try, await, auth, dot sign in with email, password. And that should be with email. I think that's incorrect. This should be this should really be the sign in method. That accepts an email and a password. Sign in with email. Yeah, that seems correct now. And then we use self.user equals result.user. So we update the local state. On line 27, there should be full stop between user question mark and the full stop with the UID. So the next function we need to create is our sign up function. A little bit similar to the sign in. Sign up. That takes an email, a string, and password as strings, got similar signature, async throws, let result equals try wait, author.auth, but this time we're creating a new user to be stored in Firebase, so we need to use create user. But everything else is the same. Create user, and we pass in our email and our password as parameter. The next function we need to create is our sign out function to enable the user to log out of the system. Try all.auth.sign out self.user equals nil. In our next tutorial, we'll create our to-do service that will manipulate the data in our Firestore database, such as create, update, delete, and retrieve all the records that we're working with. And that's for the next tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Today, we'll be building a SwiftUI to-do list app with Firebase login and Firestore. This is the actual app we'll be creating. The user is able to log in using their credentials, test@test.com. The password is test1234. Click on sign in. So as you can see, there are a few to-dos that the user needs to complete. We can add a new to-do. Click on the plus sign, add the to-do subject, collect relative from airport, assign a date, say 27th of August, click on save. As you can see, the to-do has been saved. And I'll also show you the to-do within the Firestore database. And as you can see, if we navigate to Firebase, we can see all the to-dos for the logged in user. So if I click on this document here, for this user, you can see the to-dos. And this is the new to-do that we just submitted a few minutes ago, collect relative from the airport. We can also delete the to-dos from the Firestore database by swiping. So if we wanted to delete one of the to-dos, we just swipe and click on delete, and then that record will also be removed from Firestore. And we can update the to-do as well. If you want to set one of the to-dos to complete, it's code is playing up. So go into delete mode. Let me just stop the simulator, try it again. I'll select the record again, the one that we want to update. Okay, so at the moment, the status for the wash the car to do is pending. If I want to, I can update it to done and click on save. As you can see, it's now been updated to done, so that to-do is done. We can also search or filter the to-dos. If I type in W, it will filter on all the to-dos that contains the letter W, such as wash the car and mow the lawn. So I don't know what happened there, so let's go. So this is the app that we'll be creating today. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. In this part of the tutorial, we'll be creating our to-do service. The purpose of the to-do service is to enable the user to log in or register to create a new account in Firebase, and also to enable the user to add a new to-do and to delete a to-do from Firebase. And they can also filter different to-dos and list all to-dos. So that's the purpose of the to-do service that we will now implement. The first thing we need to do is to create a new Swift file. Name the file To-Do Service. And then import the following namespaces: Firebase Firestore, import Firebase Firestore Swift, also import SwiftUI, the next thing we need to do is to create our struct to-do service. As I said earlier, this struct will provide all the create, read, update and delete operations. So we get a reference to the Firestore database on line 15. We also need to create a helper function that returns the current user's to-do sub-collection. Private function user to-do ref that will accept a string for the user's ID within Firebase and return a collection reference. It's spelled incorrectly. It should be collection reference. It's not coming up. Let me compile the source code. DB collection users document UID collection, to-do. So what that line does, it's a little bit like creating like relational data table. So it's relating the users with their to-dos. So a user can have many to-dos using the UI ID. Don't know what Xcode is doing. Function create UID. So the purpose of this function is to create a new to-do for the given user. So we have to accept the UID, which is a string, the subject, string, duat, which is date, and status of the to-do, which is to-do status. And it will throw an async. Let to-do equals, that should be to-do. Let to-do equals to-do. Now we need to initialize our to-do struct. So we pass in the, no, we don't need the ID, we just need the subject and the due at. Also the status and the owner ID, which is the UID. The next thing we need to do is to encode the to-do as a Firestore document. So we need to use user to-do ref and pass in the new ID, which is similar to like a primary key. And then we add the document, add document from to-do. Since the user has now created a to-do, we need to enable the user to update their to-do so that they can update using a similar screen to one here. They can update their subject and their due date and the pending. Function update new ID string to do, which accepts a to do, returns another sync, throws. So this will enable us to update our existing to-dos, which is stored in Firebase. To do ID, else we cannot get the ID, just exit the function because we must have an ID. try user to do ref, and the overload that we need is the one that's this one, the first one. Passing UID. Document ID. Set data. And now we're attempting to perform the update of the to-do merge, which is true. User to do ref. Is that correct? User to do. Oh, yeah, the issue is here on line 28. After the from, we need to pass in now to do, and then it's merge and true. Let's compile it. Oh yeah, the semicolon, it shouldn't be there. I'll compile it again. I'll just pause the video whilst it's compiling. Still hasn't compiled. I think I know what the problem is. Missed out the S. So the user to do's ref should have an S. On that function on line 17. So just include an S at the end. Not at the end, but after the word, or after the letter O for to do's. Now it should be okay. The next thing we need to do is to give the user an option to delete a to-do from Firebase Firestore. User ID, string, ID, string, async, rows, try, await, user, to-dos, ref. And then we just pass in the UID, similar to what we've done previously, and the document ID, and then delete, to delete the to-do from Firebase. We also need to give the user the option to fetch all records, all the to-dos that's stored in Firestore, So to do that, we have to query Firestore and then return an array of to-do. Let's snap. So we take a snapshot of all the records, user, to-dos, ref, user ID, order by. So we want to sort it or group it by due date or due at, which will be in ascending order. So it will be ascending because this descending order is false, so it's ascending order. And then we just type in get document to get that to the document. That parameter should be UID and not ID on line 36. We also need to return the document that has been converted into a to-do model. So we need to try snap document compact map. Try $, that should be try $0. So we're getting all the to-dos within an array, and then we convert it into our to-do model. That should be data, not date. That should be try $0 dot data, open bracket as. We need the colon after as to do, and then cell. And then we need to compile that one. And the next function we need to create is a string all, which accepts the UID, the string, and returns sync string of to-do object. And the purpose of this function is to provide an async string that will continually admit these to-dos whenever Firebase changes, such as if we update a to-do record in the database, it will pull down the latest changes. Async string continuation in get listener equals user to-dos ref, and then as we done earlier, we pass in the UID dot order by do at, sending is false, dot add snapshot, listener, so that should be snap error in, guard error equals to nil, let snap equals to snap, else, that means we need to end the stream, so we use continuation dot finish if there's an error, and then we just return from the function. But since there is no error, we can continue to recode the to-dos, snap document, unpack map, try question mark from sign 0, data as to do self. So on that line, lines 54, we decode the to-dos and push them into the stream, and then we also have to use continuation yield to-dos. And then if the stream was cancelled for whatever reason or ended, then we have to call continuation dot on termination equals at sendable in, and then we need to remove the listener so that it stops listening to the stream all function. Let's compile it again. In next week's tutorial, we'll focus on the root view feature that enables the user to navigate within the different navigation hierarchy structure within the application. So that's for next week's tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Today, we'll be building a SwiftUI to-do list app with Firebase login and Firestore. This is the actual app we'll be creating. The user is able to log in using their credentials, test@test.com. The password is test1234. Click on sign in. So as you can see, there are a few to-dos that the user needs to complete. We can add a new to-do. Click on the plus sign, add the to-do subject, collect relative from airport, assign a date, say 27th of August, click on save. As you can see, the to-do has been saved. And I'll also show you the to-do within the Firestore database. And as you can see, if we navigate to Firebase, we can see all the to-dos for the logged in user. So if I click on this document here, for this user, you can see the to-dos. And this is the new to-do that we just submitted a few minutes ago, collect relative from the airport. We can also delete the to-dos from the Firestore database by swiping. So if we wanted to delete one of the to-dos, we just swipe and click on delete, and then that record will also be removed from Firestore. And we can update the to-do as well. If we want to set one of the to-dos to complete, let's code is playing up. So go to delete mode. Let me just stop the simulator, try it again. I'll select the record again, the one that we want to update. Okay, so at the moment, the status for the wash the car to do is pending. If I want to, I can update it to done, and click on save. As you can see, it's now been updated to done, so that to-do is done. We can also search or filter the to-dos. If I type in W, it will filter on all the to-dos that contains the letter W, such as wash the car and mow the lawn. So I don't know what happened there, so let's go. So this is the app that we'll be creating today. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Today, we'll be building a SwiftUI to-do list app with Firebase login and Firestore. This is the actual app we'll be creating. The user is able to log in using their credentials, test@test.com. The password is test1234. Click on sign in. So as you can see, there are a few to-dos that the user needs to complete. We can add a new to-do. Click on the plus sign, add the to-do subject, collect relative from airport, assign a date, say 27th of August, click on save. As you can see, the to-do has been saved. And I also show you the to-do within the Firestore database. And as you can see, if we navigate to Firebase, we can see all the to-dos for the logged in user. So if I click on this document here, for this user, you can see the to-dos. And this is the new to-do that we just submitted a few minutes ago, collect relative from the airport. We can also delete the to-dos from the Firestore database by swiping. So if we wanted to delete one of the to-dos, we just swipe and click on delete, and then that record will also be removed from Firestore. And we can update the to-do as well. If we want to set one of the to-dos to complete, let's code is playing up. So go into delete mode. Let me just stop the simulator. Try it again. I'll select the record again, the one that we want to update. Okay, so at the moment, the status for the wash the car to do is pending. If I want to, I can update it to done. And click on save. As you can see, it's now being updated to done, so that to-do is done. We can also search or filter the to-dos. If I type in W, it will filter on all the to-dos that contains the letter W, such as wash the car and mow the lawn. So I don't know what happened there, so let's go. So this is the app that we'll be creating today. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. We will continue with the start streaming function. The purpose of the start streaming function is to enable the information within Firebase to be listened to remotely so that the change can be pulled down asynchronously into the app. So type the following: private func start streaming. And that function will begin a live stream of to-dos from the back end for the current user that's logged in. Guard let UID equals UID So that should be auth.uid, else return. So what that line does, there must be a logged in user. If there's not a logged in user, that means we have to return from the function. You just exit that function. Just make sure that the function name is spelled correctly. Start streaming. There should be an A there. Task. The purpose of using the task is to asynchronously receive the to-dos whenever anything changes within the backend. So if we update a to-do from pending to completed, or from completed to uncompleted, those changes will be reflected in the backend. So that function would, for example, display the updated list of to-dos here when anything changes in the backend. On line 38, that should be items. Next function we need to create is a refresh. And the purpose of the refresh function is to explicitly fetch all the to-dos. This can be useful when having a feature on the application such as pull to refresh or initial load. auth.uid equals auth.uid. If the user cannot be retrieved, we just exit the function, like what we've done in the previous function. CRUD was spelled incorrectly. I'll just correct that now. Is loading is equal to true. Defer is loading equals to false. The purpose of the defer keyword, it makes sure that that line or that keyword will be executed. To-dos equals try await service dot fetch all. So we retrieve all the to-dos for the logged in user. So if Fred is a user and if Fred was logged in, the application would retrieve all of Fred's to-dos and wouldn't retrieve Mary's to-dos because they're two different users. Self.error equals error, just in case there's an issue with the application. we display an error on the app so the user will know what to do next. The next function we need to add to our view model is add, and the purpose of add is to enable the user to add a new to-do to Firebase. The parameters include subject, due at, which is the due date, and the status that signifies if the to-do has been completed or not, or if it's pending or cancelled, for example, as seen within this slide, in the screenshot, which is here. You see, yeah, there's pending there. So the status should be to-do status that we created in the previous tutorial. That's the data type, async, guard let UID equals UID. Always type in UID, it should be author.uid, else return for whatever reason. If the user cannot be fetched, we just return from the function. On line 59, that should be capital S for string. Do try await. That should be try await. Service create. So we're just passing our parameters into the create function of the service object. We're passing our UID, which is the user's unique identifier, and the subject of the to-do, and the due at, which is the due date, and the status of the to-do, if it's completed or pending. As we've done earlier, we have to capture our errors. Self.error equals to error.localized description. We also need to create a function to enable the user to update their to-do, and this feature can be seen, don't know if I've got a screenshot for that one. Anyway, it allows the user to update their to-do. So to update their to-do, the function needs to take a to-do object, which is to-do, and then we need to check to make sure that the object contains a valid UID, else we need to exit this function. As we've done before, similar code, try await, service.update to do, so we pass in our UID, and we pass in our to-do that we want to update, and then we attempt to capture any errors like what we've done previously on this line. I'll just copy and paste it here. And the next function we need to create is the delete function to enable the user to delete a to-do as seen in this screenshot. The user can delete a to-do from the list by swiping. Func delete at offset index set async. So the index set gets the index of the swipe from the list, such as the swiping from this list would be at position 1, because we all know that indexes within an array start from 0. So wash the car would be 0, the swiping here would be 1. And now we implement the rest of our function. As you can see, this view model is focused on CRUD, create, read, update and delete, for manipulating the database. If there's not a user, we just exit the function. Now we go through each of the indexes in the offsets. If let ID is equal to I just need to pause it for a minute. We need to create a new function called not a function, maybe it can be done another way. To implement the filters to-dos, we will use a computed property. This filtered property will return an array of to-dos. So we implement the rest of that property afterwards. Now let's just return to lines 85. Now we can call our new property, which is called filter to-dos, and then pass in our ID. And the next thing we can do is try to delete a record from Firebase. Since we have the record ID, we can attempt to remove the record from the app. Handle any errors in our catch. Self.error equals error.localize description. And now we just complete our filter to-dos, computer property. Type the following: guard not query dot trim characters in dot white spaces and new lines is empty. So what we're doing there, we're removing any white spaces and any empty spaces. From our query. And then the next thing to do is to return an array of to-dos. Let q equals query dot lowercase and then the next thing we need to do is to filter our to-dos. Each to-do contains a subject which will be converted to lowercase. Once it contains our search criteria. And also we want to retrieve the status from the to-do, and we convert that to lowercase as well, but it has to match our criteria, our query, and then the actual result will be returned to the calling routine. The next file we need to create is our to-do editor's view. The purpose of our to-do editor's view is to enable the user to perform the actual edits of the to-do using the actual UI or GUI. I think there's a screenshot here somewhere. But it's a little bit similar to this. When the user clicks on a to-do, they're allowed to edit that to-do. So let's create the new file, SwiftUI file, name the file to-do editor view. We need to add a few properties or variables, existing, to-do, which is optional. And the reason why this is optional, if we're editing, we pass in a existing to-do. But if we're creating a new to-do from scratch, it will be new. That's why we have to have the question mark there for optional. var on save string date to-do status void. And that's our callback function. that we need to create. The purpose of the callback function is to send the subject, date and status back to the parent view, which is the main view of the application. At environment, dismiss, private var dismiss. That will enable the user to dismiss the screen when finished. We also need to create a few state properties for the form fields. At state, private var subject, string, at state, private var duet, date, and another at state, private var status, to do status. And we also need to create our initializer. Don't think we need all of these though. Let me just do it manually. So the parameters that's needed include existing to do, which is optional, on save, at escaping, where we pass in our parameters, string date, and to do status, and then we just return void. Self.existing equals existing. Self.onSave equals onSave. So what we're doing there, we store the callback, and we also keep a reference to the to-do being edited. Subject equals state, initial value, existing, subject. If it's empty, we just put 2 commas there. So that the state for the subject will be filled with a blank string. And then we do the same thing for duet and status. Duet. So if it's blank, we just include today's date as the default, and for status we do something similar as well. If it's blank, we just assign it to pending. In next week's tutorial, we will continue to implement the rest of the to-do editor's view. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Today, we will be building a SwiftUI to-do list app with Firebase login and Firestore. This is the actual app we'll be creating. The user is able to log in using their credentials, test@test.com. The password is test1234. Click on sign in. So as you can see, there are a few to-dos that the user needs to complete. We can add a new to-do. Click on the plus sign, add the to-do subject, collect relative from airport, assign a date, say 27th of August, click on save. As you can see, the to-do has been saved. And I'll also show you the to-do within the Firestore database. And as you can see, if we navigate to Firebase, we can see all the to-dos for the logged in user. So if I click on this document here, for this user, you can see the to-dos. And this is the new to-do that we just submitted a few minutes ago, collect relative from the airport. We can also delete the to-dos from the Firestore database by swiping. So if we wanted to delete one of the to-dos, we just swipe and click on delete, and then that record will also be removed from Firestore. And we can update the to-do as well. If you want to set one of the to-dos to complete, its code is playing up. So go into delete mode. Let me just stop the simulator. Try it again. I'll select the record again, the one that we want to update. Okay, so at the moment, the status for the wash the car to do is pending. If I want to, I can update it to done and click on save. As you can see, it's now being updated to done, so that to do is done. We can also search or filter the to-dos. If I type in W, it will filter on all the to-dos that contains the letter W, such as wash the car and mow the lawn. So I don't know what happened there, so let's go. So this is the app that we'll be creating today. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. We are continuing with our to-do editor view. So last week, this is where we left off within the initializer. So what we need to do now is to implement our navigation stack and add our text fields as seen here. Where's the right one now? Subjects. Yeah, in this screen here. So we need to add our subject, due, and our status picker as well. So we need to implement that within our to-do editors view. So delete line 33 and then add our new navigation stack. Navigation stack. A form. Our form will contain the following elements such as a text field, to capture the subject of the to-do, also a date picker, that includes the due date of the to-do, selection, $, due at, display components. So we want to display the date plus the hours, the hour and minutes. It should be hour and minute. Within our picker, date picker. And then within our picker for our to-do, we have statuses such as complete or pending or cancel, selection, and we loop through each of our elements in our array and display our statuses that enables the user to choose from. For each to-do status, all cases, S in, I just called it status. The status in text status.raw value, and we capitalize each status. And we also use a tag. It should be capitalized. After capitalize, we need a closing bracket there, and then we need to delete the other closing bracket at the end of status. That should be okay now. Now we next need to add a navigation title. Existing. If existing is nil, then that means we don't have any to-dos. So we signify this to the user that they can create a new to-do. Else, if there are to-dos available, we show the user that they can that they can edit their existing to-do. And remember, all of these to-dos are stored in Firebase. We also need a toolbar, so we need to add the toolbar to the navigation. The toolbar item will include a cancellation action. So the button for this will be called cancel, and then when the user clicks on that button, they're able to dismiss, like get rid of the view. We also need to add another toolbar item. The purpose of this toolbar item will enable the user to click on the save button. It should be placement, confirmation action, button, save, on save. So we're saving the subject and the due at and the status, which will be saved and sent to Firebase, and then we just dismiss the sheet afterwards. And we also need to disable the button if the subject is empty, because each to-do needs to have a subject. For example, to-do for, what's the date today? A to-do for like Monday the 22nd of September could be to wash the car. So the subject for the to-do would be to wash the car. So if there's no to-do available, then that button has to be disabled. So we just type the following: subject.trim characters in dot white spaces is empty. So if it's empty, then just disable the button. The next file we need to create is our to-do list file. And the purpose of our to-do list file, our to-do list view, is to enable the user to display and capture all of the to-dos that are stored in Firebase. So this is the view that we'll be creating, the to-do list view. Create a new file, SwiftUI file. Name the file to-do list view. We need to decorate the list view with main actor, and also that should be a lowercase I for list view. That should be lowercase I there on lines 18 we need to add a few variables at environment, auth service, .self, private var, auth. So the purpose of line 18 is to pull in the auth service from the environment, and the purpose of the auth service is to enable the application to sign in, sign out, for example. At state private var VM, which is our view model, which is our to-do list view model. So the view model holds the business logic and the data logic for the to-do list. And the other variable we need to create is another at state private var show editor equals false, and that will just control when the sheet should be shown or hidden. At state private var editing to do optional equals nil, and that will hold the current to do that's being edited at that time. We also need, I spelled private incorrectly, so this should be an A after the B. So we also need to add our init method, PM equals state, initial value to do list view model auth init. So what we've done there, we've just initialized the view model with a placeholder of auth service. The next thing we need to do is to delete lines 26 and then add our navigation stack, our list, and then loop through all of our to-do items that were retrieved from Firebase. So for each don't know why it doesn't like that for each. Let me type it again. For we also need to add a button. Editing is equal to do. That will set the current to do. And also show editor is equal to true. And that will open the editor sheet. We also need a label, hstack, So within our H stack, we also need to create the B stack. Then alignment, dot leading, spacing, 4 pixels, text, to do, subject, and then we just apply the font type, which is headline. And then we need to add another text element to show the to-do.due date, which is due at style date, font dot subheadline, dot foreground style is secondary. The next thing we need to do is to add a spacer to the right side of the status badge. And then we also need to include our to-do status, which is within our raw value, which is our enum, and it should be capitalized. Font dot callout, the font type, padding dot horizontal, padding dot vertical, 4, and then clip shape is capsule, as you can see, the preview takes such a long time to load. On delete, offsets, in, and the purpose of this is to enable the user to swipe to delete a preview. Then we call await VM, our view model, dot delete. Delete it at this offset. And if we go to our delete method within our view model, we can see how it works. See, it sends a record to Firebase, and then Firebase will delete the record, the to-do from the system. The next thing we need to do is to create our overlay within our list to show the different types of states, such as loading or empty. What happened with Xcode? I'm going to delete the preview. If VM is loading, so if we're in loading state, then we need to show the progress view. So that the user will be aware that something is being retrieved. Else, if VM is to filter the to-dos, and if it's empty, then we have to show the content on available view. And it will be the caption, no to-dos. For the system image, we just use list.bullet. There shouldn't be two else statements on line 64 and 65, there's an error. So we need to delete the one on line 64 and delete any bracket, any one of these brackets. Now let's compile it. The next thing we need to do is to add a navigation title. Navigation title, my to-dos, and then we also need to add our toolbar buttons at the top. Toolbar, the toolbar needs toolbar items. Placement will be top bar leading. The button will be, or we'll have the caption sign out. And then we just call try author.sign out to sign out of the application and to sign out of Firebase. Just going to compile it again. We also need to create another to-do, another toolbar item And the purpose of this toolbar item will give the user the option to create a new to-do by clicking on a plus sign. Toolbar item placement. It should be placement. Top bar trailing. And then the button that will be editing equals nil. As we're not in editing mode, we'll be creating a new to-do. Show editor equals to true. And then for the label, it will be image, system name, and plus. What else do we need to do? Don't know why this one is coming up as an error. So there's toolbar item, placement, dot, top bar trailing, button, wonder if I deleted a bracket by accident. Well, let me delete this one and compile it and see what happens. So now I'll just retype it. Toolbar item, placement dot top bar trailing. Something to do with the toolbar item. I'll pause the video, see if I can fix it offline. Yeah, I found the problem. What it is, there's a bracket missing after line 78. There should be a bracket here to end this toolbar item. And then we need to delete any of these brackets at the end. And then just recompile. And then apply our button again that we created a few minutes ago. Editing equals nil. Show editor equals true. Label image system name, and we're using plus again. I'll just compile it again. So in next week's tutorial, we add the feature that enables the view to refresh itself and repopulate the records from Firebase. Today, we will be building a SwiftUI to-do list app with Firebase login and Firestore. This is the actual app we'll be creating. The user is able to log in using their credentials, test@test.com. The password is test1234. Click on sign in. So as you can see, there are a few to-dos that the user needs to complete. We can add a new to-do. Click on the plus sign, add the to-do subject, collect relative from airport, assign a date, say 27th of August, click on save. As you can see, the to-do has been saved. And I also show you the to-do within the Firestore database. And as you can see, if we navigate to Firebase, we can see all the to-dos for the logged in user. So if I click on this document here, for this user, you can see the to-dos. And this is the new to-do that we just submitted a few minutes ago, collect relative from the airport. We can also delete the to-dos from the Firestore database by swiping. So if we wanted to delete one of the to-dos, we just swipe and click on delete, and then that record will also be removed from Firestore. And we can update the to-do as well. If you want to set one of the to-dos to complete, its code is playing up. So go into delete mode. Let me just stop the simulator. Try it again. I'll select the record again, the one that we want to update. Okay, so at the moment, the status for the wash the car to do is pending. If I want to, I can update it to done. Then click on save. As you can see, it's now being updated to done, so that to-do is done. We can also search or filter the to-dos. If I type in W, it will filter on all the to-dos that contains the letter W, such as wash the car and mow the lawn. So I don't know what happened there, so let's go. So this is the app that we'll be creating today. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. Within our to-do list view, we need to enable the refresh for the to-dos when our view first loads. So to do that, we need to implement that functionality after lines 91. We need to type in .task await VM for our view model refresh. That will call the refresh function within our view model and then repopulate the data on our view. We also need to include a sheet. The purpose of the sheet is to enable the user to create or edit a new to-do. So we pass in our binding variables, which are show editor. So when show editor is set to true, that means our sheet will be visible. We can delete the content. And then we also have to type in our to-do editor view, existing, editing, and this will enable the user to edit the to-dos within our to-do editor view, which is the UI. So we need to pass in the subject, the date, and the status, and that's wrapped in a task. If var e equals editing, so if there's something to be edited, so it's not nil, then we capture the subject, that should be subject, we capture the due date from Firebase, and also the status. So the status is coming from Firebase and copied into status.e. Await VM update. So that means we're updating existing to do within Firebase, else it means we need to add a new to do to Firebase. So we just pass in the subject and the date and the status of the to-do. After line 111, we enter the following: dot presentation, detents, I spelled presentation incorrectly, and then we pass in medium, and large. So that means the sheet can be displayed in a medium or large format. And then we also need to add searchable. And the purpose of searchable is to enable our to-dos to be filtered using the built-in search bar. So that'll be text $vm.query placement.navigation bar drawer, which is the second overloaded one. That is incorrect. Let me do it again. Navigation. No, it's the first one. Navigation drawer. Display mode. Always. And then a prompt. Which is the caption. So the prompt will be search subject or status. Dot on appear. We type in the following: if not VM is equals 3 equals to do list view model. We select the overloaded method, the one with auth. Then we pass in our author service. vm.wrapValue equals to do list view model auth, which is the last one. And then we pass in our auth. And the purpose of lines 118 is to ensure that the correct user ID is used. Now just compile it. The next thing we need to do is to open up our, what happened there? Yeah, content view. We're not using the content view, so this was what I was going to say. We need to open up our app file, and then you have to make sure you have imported Firebase core. And then after line 6, you need to type the following: at state private var auth service, which is the shared authentication service. And then we also need our initializer to initialize the functions or properties that will be used. So the initializer will include Firebase app.configure, and then we also need to assign underscore auth is equal to state, passing the initial value of the author service, and the purpose, that should be author service. And the purpose of that is to configure Firebase at startup. So that must be called before using Firebase APIs, else the application will crash. Within our Windows group, we need to enter the following, because we need the root view to be the initial view that will start up. And then we also need to inject the author service into our environment. So that'll be at environment auth service .self environment it should be environment with lowercase e, environment.auth. I think there's an error somewhere. At environment. Lines 20 is incorrect. That should be deleted. That shouldn't be there. My mistake. Let's see if this one works or compiles. Just compiling at the moment. Oh yeah, we also need to navigate to our root view and then uncomment the following that we've done in an earlier tutorial. So we have to make sure that the to-do list view is uncommented so it can be called, and the author view can be called, so we need to uncomment it. And then we just run it. And then that's it. We should be able to log into the application when the login screen appears. I've logged in already, so just log in again. Enter the password. We can log in, enter or create new to-dos. We can edit to-dos, assign the to-dos to pending, done or cancel. We can also create a new account as well, or create a new user. So that's it for the Firebase to-do list tutorial.